Welcome to the Broadband Catalyst Video Help Series. Today's video will help you understand how to explore and visualize on the different types of information that are in your GIS project. Here I have open a map of North Carolina. Here is the OSM standard map. I have the outline of North Carolina visualized in black, and then the outline of Halifax County outlined in blue. For the purposes of today's video, I'm actually going to turn off the standard map, for now at least, because it's easier for me to see the layers without that. A personal preference, completely. As you can see in my layers menu, I have lots and lots of data in this map. This is kind of a collection of data. We're not going to look at every layer, but today, the purpose of today's video is to be able to explore what data is in your GIS map, and if it has something that you want to visualize that isn't there, for you to be able to find it and to visualize it. I'm going to start with the health layers that I have here. You can see I have this data is on the census tract level for the most part, so it's a little bit smaller than county. So you can see that there's, varying areas within the county that will show up. So I'm going to start with the percent tract with depression. So this shows what percentage of that census tract is estimated to be suffering from depression. So we've got in the 20% here, and then at 18% here. If you notice, I have a little arrow to the left of my layer. Oh, I'm up here. And that will actually tell you the colors. Like if I didn't have the labels on the map, then you could say, oh, well, that darker blue color, those are in the range of 21 to 27.9%. But I like to have the labels on just because it makes it so much faster to be able to see what you're looking at. I also have, what percentage of the census tract has any kind of disability, right? So when we look at this, then we have 45% here, 40%, 39%. So we're about at 40% in these areas. And you can tell this is same areas that are lighting up because that is the data. That is what data was available. So there are parts of this county that are not represented here because the data wasn't collected. So if I look at really any of these first several layers, I'm going to open the properties table. Because I made the map, I happen to know that all of these layers are based on the same attribute table. So if I go to my information panel at the top of my properties, you should have in the identification, you should have a little description of where the data came from. These layers contain data from the USDA Food Access Research Atlas, CDC Places data, and the American Community Survey 5-year results from the Census Bureau. So that was the source of these bits of information. Okay, if we scroll down to the fields section of this informational panel, you can see we actually have 329 columns of data, right? So if you're thinking of this in terms of like Excel or Google Sheets, and you think about the number of columns that you have in your data set, that's 329 different columns of data, each with however many rows, right? So there's a lot of information here. Some of it's simply identification, where we found, what state, what county are we in, what census tract are we in. And then we also get to what data is actually there. So we have data from the Food Access Research Atlas, that's from the USDA, as far as low income and or low access to food. And that is divided up on many different levels: age, race, income, things like that. You can see there's a lot of rows of columns that are just that. Okay, and then we get to a new kind of name of columns, and these are the American Community Surveys 5-year estimates from 2022. This is from table S2 801. If you wanted to search on the data.gov website, you could easily find this data by searching for that table. So what the ACS data in this table has is access to the internet and access to a device such as a computer that can use the internet. To find out what each of these columns means, you can actually go to the data.gov website and look at this table. You can download, if you download the zip file with the information, it actually has a dictionary in it that will tell you what each of these column names mean. Okay, then we have data that comes from the Places project. That is a CDC project that tries to really get a whole picture of health in the United States. It is on the census tract level, and you can see we have the crude prevalence of arthritis, of binge drinking, of high blood pressure, of taking blood pressure medicine, things like that. So this is all of this Places data that is health. And then at the end there are some calculated values from these tables that I've added, or that have been added, including the median income, and then the expressions for finding what was that highest preventative care, the lowest preventative care, and what were the names of those things. So that's kind of how you can look at the list of fields and kind of see what information is in this particular layer. Right, and if you scroll all the way down to the bottom where it says links, there are actually direct links to the sources of this data. Let's say that I want to focus on this Places data, but instead of focusing on the percentage of a tract that suffers from depression, maybe I want to look more closely at chronic heart disease. In this data, that is the CHD here. I have the crude prevalency and then the confidence interval. So at a 95% confidence interval, this is the percent of people at census tract level who have chronic heart disease. So I know now the name of the field that I want to visualize on. So I can actually go down to my Symbology tab. This just changes how things look, right? And here in value, instead of looking at the prevalence of depression, I can actually open this drop-down menu, and I'm going to look for the Places CHD, which happens to be right up here. Okay, I'm going to leave the color ramp as blue. And for now, I'm going to push classify to classify the data. And then I'm going to push apply and push OK. When this has a large data set, sometimes this can take a while. So then if I visualize this, This is actually, I can rename the layer. This is the percent of the tract with CHD, chronic heart disease. But the reason that that doesn't match is that my labels. I'm going to just turn off labels for now. I will show you how to change the labels. But you can see that the percentages are much lower than they were with the depression. They go from 6.9% up to 9.3%. And so if you just wanted to look at the higher levels, you could turn off all but this, and then you could do more research into the census tract level, this general area, and look at what other factors might be there. Now, when I had the labels on, those labels do not match the percentages listed here. So I'm going to go back into my properties. I'm going to go to my labels, and you will see the label value stayed with the depression. So I just need to go and choose the correct column to go with it. Push apply, push OK. Again, this is a very large data set, so it might take a minute on your computer. Why did that not update? Because it's still thinking. Here we go. And now you can see the percentages updated. So let's visualize on another field just for good practice. I'm going to use the same data set again. And let's choose what else we might want to visualize on. How about at the bottom here, I have a median income. That's another numerical value that we can visualize on. So let's do that. Let's do median income. It's at the very bottom. Okay, and I'm going to push classify again. Now you have some different options here for how to classify your data. I like to stick with equal intervals or equal counts. And let's say I do want 5. Let's say I want 10 classes. So I want 10 different levels of classification. And I'm going to push classify. So it breaks this down into the 10 different equal levels of median income. Now remember, our label doesn't automatically update, so let's go change that too. I'm going to go to my labels option, and I'm going to go choose the median income, and I'm going to push apply, and then OK. And then I'm going to wait for a minute. There it goes. Okay. So I'm going to rename this layer to say median income. And now I can see how these are split up. That this area has $33,000 to $36,000 a year. There's one small area here that has $72,000 as a median household income per year, and then the others are in the 40,000s range. You can change these buckets. If you go back into properties to your Symbology, you can actually change these. Maybe if you wanted it to be to go from 0 to 35,000, you can actually change the lower values and they'll update one another as long as you have that class boundary checked. So maybe then I wanted to go 35 to 45. If you have extras when you're done changing your values, then you can just delete them. So let's see, it's 55. Let's do 65. And then let's do 75,000 and above. Now I know the limit of this particular data set is 72,000. I'm just going to make it a big number. And I don't want these anymore, right? So I can click them one at a time, or I can click and hold shift and click the next one. If I want to get rid of all 4 of those, I can click this minus button here. And now I have the amounts that I wanted to be left with. If I push apply and push OK, now you can see that my buckets are the ones that I defined myself. And the legend automatically updates. So that's all great for numerical values. What if I have something that is not a numerical value? I'm going to go a little bit further down my list, and I'm going to look at power plants. And I'm going to look at my properties table first. Okay. This information, am I on the right one? Yeah, okay. Here you can see the link to the data set, and you can see I have the name of the power plant. I have the address, the primary source, which is actually what, if I look at my power plants, that's actually how I visualized what power plants were. Let me turn this off. Turn this off. Which power plants were solar is these yellow stars, and then you can see there's other power plants as well. But let's say that I did want to visualize this. First, let me give you a look at the attribute table. Oop, it's tiny from the last thing I did. If you have columns that are going to be too long, you can auto size columns to make them longer. And in Halifax County, we have 16 power plants. I can see that I have plant names. I can see that they are electric utilities, as well as these other classifications, their street address, their primary source, which is what, like I said earlier, what I visualize the other layer on. And we also have a tech description here. So maybe I want to look at the power plants, but I want to look at them based on their tech description. This is not a numerical value. When I was looking at my health values, they were percentages. Those are numerical. So we're going to choose a different option when we go into visualize. I am going to go into my properties menu. I'm going to go into Symbology. And when I was looking at my income and my health results, I was actually in a graduated Symbology here, and you'll see this little icon on the left tells you that it's numbers, right? But when it comes to symbolizing something based on text, we're going to go to categorized. And the list here is different. We can do numbers, but we also have text. And that's what I want. I want text, and I'm going to categorize this on the tech description. I can choose a different symbol if I want to. Right now it's on an SVG marker. I could choose something else. I could choose one of these dots. There are lots of different options. But I'm actually just going to keep my star here. And if we leave it on random colors and we just push classify, I now have one different color for each of the different kinds of tech. I have a color for batteries, solar photovoltaic. I have conventional hydroelectric, petroleum liquids, solar photovoltaic without the batteries, and then wood or wood waste biomass. And then all other values, is if there's something else, it'll show up that. If you don't want that, you can delete it by pushing this minus sign. And we're going to push apply and press OK. So now you'll see that some of these stars changed colors from what they were before. I do have the labels set to the name of the power plant, so those didn't change at all. So that's kind of the only thing that's different between numbers and text is you want to choose graduated for numbers and categorized for text when you're choosing your symbology. So again, in your symbology tab, that's that first line, categorized and graduated. This is text. This is number. If you want to get into rule-based symbology, you can do that. That's beyond the scope of this video right now. Or maybe you just want to know if there's something there. You can do that as well. And then it doesn't change them by the type. It just says, hey, there's a data point here. So hopefully this video kind of helps you understand how to visualize different things, different numbers. No. Okay, I'm going to turn off my power plant information here. And there's one other thing that I was going to look at. And I'm actually going to need a different map to do that. So give me just a moment. Okay, so I have actually opened a different map. This is still the state of North Carolina, and I have the outlines of the different counties here. And one of the visualizations that I have on this map is whether the counties are labeled as being in persistent poverty, which means that they have been in a 20% or higher amount of poverty for so many years. So if I turn that flag on, oops, I turned on, don't really need the lakes and rivers, you can see that there are some counties here and here that are listed as persistent poverty. So when I downloaded this data set, the only counties that were included were those that were listed as in persistent poverty. So to visualize it in my properties, in my symbology, basically I chose a single symbol, and if that county is listed as persistent, it will show up. So that is an example of using the single symbol symbology. And then I also here have the percentage of the county and the poverty, which really kind of gives you an idea of what those areas are surrounded by, what they look like, etc. If I wanted to add another related layer to this, I could also add this Food Atlas Low Income Low Access flag. And I have to push the check mark. There we go. So now you can see in those areas that are high poverty or persistent poverty, how much of those are also in an area where it's hard to access food. So there's definitely some interesting layers here and some different things that you can visualize on. In the case of this particular layer, this is technically in the categorized, but I had created a field that calculated if any of the low income, low access flags were true, then they were marked. So, this might be low income, low access at half a mile urban, 10 miles rural, or some other number. But it's just an overall, this area is marked as low income, low access. Just like overall, this area is considered to be in persistent poverty, right? So I hope that helps you understand how to visualize some of the data that's in your map. And as always, if you have questions, please feel free to email us info@broadbandcatalyst.com. And I hope that this video was useful for you. I hope you found this video helpful. If you still have questions, feel free to email us or check out the rest of our help playlists.